Welcome back to Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Alaina Pinto. Cannabis has quickly become a more international market, starting with Canada as the first G7 nation to make it a federally legal commodity and start to export their legal product to Europe and other countries. Germany is still in its first year of legalization, but the laws there continue to evolve. With that in mind, we've found a great addition to our group of reporters and correspondents across the pond in Europe. Ben Stevens is the editor of the Business of Cannabis in Europe and is based in London, England. Here's his first cannabis recap of what is going on in that continent.
I'm Ben Stevens with Business of Cannabis with this week's European Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Spain has finally taken a step towards launching its long-promised medical cannabis programme, as a draft bill has been sent to the European Union for approval. This means that a regulated medical cannabis framework could be launched by the summer, but the decree remains controversial, with experts questioning whether it goes far enough to bring any tangible relief for patients. Despite Spain now being one of the key cultivation hubs in Europe, the programme will not allow for the prescription of flower. Furthermore, any medical cannabis grown in Spain is strictly for export purposes only, meaning all products in this restrictive scheme will have to be imported. Only medical specialists will be allowed to prescribe, and only hospital pharmacies will be able to dispense, meaning swathes of the estimated 250,000 Spanish patients currently reliant on the black market will still have limited access to legitimate medical cannabis. Crucially, the final draft of this bill removed a clause which effectively opened the door for future expansion, making this conservative plan much harder to improve in the future. Elsewhere, the Czech Republic has brought its highly anticipated adult use bill to Parliament to be debated once again after a long delay. After months of political deadlock, an amendment to the Czech Republic's existing self-cultivation bill has been submitted, forcing a debate on full cannabis regulation. Although the amendment has been officially submitted, no date has been set for the debate. With political divisions and an election looming, the race is on to get this bill finalised before November. The Czech Republic is now the only European country pushing for full adult use legislation, making this a crucial bill for the region. That's it for this week's European Cannabis Report. I'm Ben Stevens from Business of Cannabis, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
This is Debi Facey with the Canadian Cannabis Report. So what we have in Canada this week is Calgary, Alberta is wanting to introduce not only the adult consumption at adult-only events, but also the ability to purchase cannabis at these adult-only events. This will not only put the illicit market on the same level page as the legal market, but it will also put the alcohol as well as the cannabis industry on the same playing field when it comes to being able to purchase and consume within the same establishment. This is something that sounds very interesting, especially due to the fact that we don't have lounges here in Canada. But if they're allowing, or they will to allow the ability to be able to consume and purchase at events, hopefully that means that we might be moving into a more greener pasture when it comes to lounges. This is your Canadian correspondent, Debi Facey, with the Canadian Coast to Coast Cannabis Report.
Back here in the United States, we turn to the nation's #1 cannabis market, the state of California. There are calls in that state to reinforce the ban on hemp-derived products, and yes, more calls by elected officials to increase taxes on cannabis products in order to make up for revenue losses. Case in point is San Diego. That's where Dina Naguib is from and reports every week.
I'm Dina Naguib, Principal Consultant at Grass Goddess Consulting, here to give you the latest developments in California for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. This week's California report will focus on San Diego, where a lot of news is happening. The mayor, Todd Gloria, recently announced that he is considering a 2% city cannabis tax increase to help address the budget crisis and declining cannabis revenue. This comes on the heels of Gloria cutting the city's social equity program last year and returning the money granted by the state. With taxes already high, this could cause problems in an already challenging market. Also in the San Diego area, the city of Vista approved licensed cannabis consumption events with sales last year, and the Farmers Cup will be holding their first official licensed event March 15th. This event will be at the Moonlight Amphitheater, and 2,000 attendees are expected. The Farmers Cup have been holding judging and educational events for several years, but this is the first licensed event with consumption and sales of cannabis. Speaking of consumption, San Diego is going to be smoky because Sessions by the Bay, the first consumption lounge in San Diego, is expected to open the end of March. The new lounge will have immersive experiences, stoner food, entertainment, and lots of cannabis. The grand opening is scheduled for March 28th, and this will be a great place for locals and tourists to consume safely with others. That's it for the California Report. I'm Dina Naguib for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
Now let's turn back to the East Coast and see what's going on in New Jersey. That relatively new market continues to grow, but so does the practice of price gouging. This is especially disturbing to the state's 66,000 medical patients. Despite the relatively small size of that market, they did account for 25% of the over $1 billion of cannabis sold in 2024. Multi-state operators in the Garden State are doing a great job in selling wholesale products into dispensaries for both adult use and medical patients. The state that abuts Jersey is Pennsylvania. And even though that state is still trying to get a favorable bill for adult use to their governor, there are over 450,000 medical patients in the Keystone State. And now prices for a gram there have fallen to $3, while in New Jersey, medical patients are paying an average of $300 a month for their medicine, and the cost per gram in the Garden State is between $10 and $25 per gram. Needless to say, there are plenty of people going over state lines to get the best deals they can on either adult use in New Jersey or medical sales in Pennsylvania. And with more from New Jersey, here's Jill Goldsberry.
I'm Jill Goldsberry here with the Garden State Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News, and here's what's happening in the Garden State of New Jersey. New legislation is being introduced that may loosen rules on recreational cannabis sales, actually. So that is the news. The new legislation is being introduced by State Senate President Nicholas Scutari, and it would allow for cannabis facilities to literally bypass municipality approval to begin recreational sales. Now, why that's a big deal? 1/3 of our state is allowed to have recreational and medicinal cannabis sales, while the rest of New Jersey completely prohibits it in any way whatsoever. This would allow for cannabis facilities to be able to bypass municipality approval and actually open up in various municipalities that are not open now. So there's expected pushback on this, and we will definitely keep you posted on what's happening with that. In other news, as Black History Month continues, a new partnership has arisen between New Jersey's #1 edible brand, Butter Cake, and a sweet place in the town of Montclair called She Imagined Sweets. There's a new product on the market by Butter Cake. It's called the Indulgence Jar, the Double Indulgence Jar. And that, oh my God, it sounds amazing. It is something that, if you've ever wanted to share these brownies with your friends who don't infuse, this is the perfect item because it is creamy cheesecake with a delectable chocolate brownie from Butter Cake. And I'm sure it's amazing. I can't wait to try it myself. But that is available only for a limited time, and you could find them only at She Imagined Sweets in Montclair, New Jersey, if you know, you know. And reach out to either one of them to find out how long this partnership will be going on, because you definitely don't want to miss out on it. I'm Jill Goldsberry with Cannabis Coast to Coast News, the Garden State edition. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
One of the newest adult use legal states in the country is Minnesota. That state has yet to open any dispensaries, and now it looks like the tribal nations in that state may be the first to take advantage of the new legal cannabis landscape. Governor Tim Walz is in negotiations with 11 of the 12 tribes in his state who will be given the rights to open off-reservation stores, manufacturing facilities, and cultivation. This was part of the 2023 law that legalized cannabis in Minnesota, a state with a history of quite a few tribal nations. With more on the already engaged world of our friends in the indigenous community, here's Tina Tasaka in Nevada.
I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies, and this is the Nevada and Tribal Nations Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Planet 13 Holdings has announced a new partnership to co-brand, package, and produce premium cannabis products for boxing champion Mike Tyson, wrestling icon Ric Flair, and multi-platinum artist Future. We are excited to continue to expand our celebrity-based universe, bringing the biggest names in entertainment and sports to life through top-tier cannabis products, said Lee Frazier, Chief Administrative Officer of Planet 13. On February 7th, 2025, the Las Vegas Sun reported on a long article about Nevada lawmakers pushing for solutions to combat illegal marijuana sales in the state. Based on this, one of the lawmakers is drafting the following. Assembly member Max Carter II is drafting a bill to allow marijuana kiosks in 13 non-gaming hotels on the Las Vegas Strip, aiming to steer tourists away from illegal sources. These kiosks would provide a secure pickup location for legal, tested, and taxed cannabis, reducing the risk of unsafe products. The plan also minimizes cash on site to deter robberies and enhance safety. This proposal seeks a balance between gaming and cannabis industries while ensuring controlled operations. We will continue to follow this legislation and report on any updates. And now, fresh off the Champ Show, I gotta say, I was blown away by this show, and in many aspects, some of the highlights for me included Mike Tyson. He continues to expand his empire, and now he has an eye drop. They are called Mic Drops. Snoop was there, and he fired up the crowd. Blunts and iconic, incredible music in his SWED booth. Smoke weed every day. I think that more than 50% of the booths had a hemp D9 bevy. And for the first time ever, live tattoos were on the floor with Sheldon Cooper. URB, Herb, they had liftoff. Their booth emulated an airline cabin with flight attendants, savvy product placement, and a Mile High Club. All in all, Champs was just amazing, and July is around the corner, so I will return. That's it for the Nevada highlights and Tribal Nations. I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies and Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
There are more issues in Oregon cannabis besides an overabundance of product and crashing prices. There is a dispute now over the growth of organized labor in that state. So here's Marianne Cursetjee with more.
I'm Marianne from Alibi with the Oregon Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Two legal stories out of Oregon this week. The first is that a customer has filed suit against retailer Highway 99 Cannabis Co. and vape manufacturer Quantum Alchemy. According to the lawsuit, the plaintiff was using a vape pen while naked in his bathroom when it exploded, causing injuries and a small fire. He is suing for $223,000. Quantum Alchemy was also in the news 2 years ago for a pesticide recall. Next, a lawsuit has been filed to halt enforcement of Measure 119. The lawsuit claims that the federal National Labor Relations Act preempts this state measure. According to the filed plaintiff statement, Measure 119 denies employees the right to decide for themselves whether or not to join a union and is inconsistent with the NLRA, which provides employees with the right not to engage in any union activity. If enforced, Measure 119 could deny licenses to those cannabis businesses that fail to follow the law and would irreparably harm those businesses and their employers. Rumor has it that it will be in front of a judge shortly, so we shall see how this lawsuit unfolds. That's the Oregon Cannabis Report. I'm Marianne with Alibi for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
That'll do it for the B Block, but don't go away. PCM TV founder Jimmy Young has an exclusive interview with Chris Ferrone from the Talking Joints Memo and one of the most respected local cannabis journalists in the Bay State. They will talk about a handful of lawsuits, a very public dispute between the state treasurer and the former chair of the Cannabis Control Commission, and lab shopping lawsuits. All that and more coming up on Cannabis Coast to Coast. Don't go away.
Yes, I mean, Jimmy, Massachusetts has some of the most unbelievably strict regulation, right. Especially for things like residual solvents for vapes and things like that. So people can really be rest assured. At the same time, some of the restrictions it's not just that they're strict, they're really unreasonable and not well done, according to experts.
It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. You know, I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weejits filtration system. What? The Weejits.com, Weejits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. The guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. Now, add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weejits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind.